Welcome to Dystopia Unmasked, where I have the privilege of quizzing Alexander Carberry on the essays, the research papers, the analysis that he uploads on Dystopia Unmasked. This has been going on since 2023, 2024. Did we
Yeah,
start late?
we started 2023. We
Oh,
started
Lord.
yeah.
This has been going on for a while. I have grown tremendously from the never ending set of instruments, conceptual innovations, and conceptual improvements to concepts
Mm-hmm.
that are widely available that you so comfortably infuse in these conversations we've been having. And for that, I'm extremely grateful. And I really invite our audience to, um, as eagerly as I do it, pick the concepts and the terminology and the propositions in your writings and
Mm-hmm.
utilize them and test them. You've also pointed out in some of the writings on Dystopia Unmasked here on Substack,
Mm-hmm.
the methodology. You've made the methodology that inspires you, drives you, that you use in trying to
Mm-hmm.
make sense of reality explicit. You can
Mm-hmm.
find those explicit methodological explanants. You can find them on Dystopia Unmasked,
Mm-hmm.
and I invite the audience to actually plow through the archive, and you will find readily the framework through which our reality, our shared reality, is explored uh, over here at Dystopia Unmasked.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we are going to discuss the last two of three uh, analytical exposés that you've uploaded on Dystopia Unmasked.
Mm-hmm.
And you speak of three clocks, you speak of temporality, you speak of these temporalities focused, zooming in on the crisis, the escalated crisis that we're currently subjected to by
Mm-hmm.
the leading hegemon of planet Earth in confrontation with an entire region. The intervention, the military intervention that had announced itself, in my opinion, in
Mm-hmm.
August 2024. In
Mm-hmm.
Yes, in August 2024, Bibi Netanyahu declared war on Iran. For some
Mm-hmm.
reason, the media didn't pick up on it and didn't sort of highlight it as it should have been. The terminology was clear, the objective was clear, and he said the question is not whether it'll take place, but when it will take place. And
Mm-hmm.
so this year in 2026, it has taken place and it has been carried out, as Marco Rubio pointed out, preemptively by the
Mm-hmm.
United States of America.
No, preemptively, defensively.
But, well, whatever the lingo is, excuse me, the United States has thrown its full weight militarily into the confrontation with Iran, a confrontation that experts in the field have been expecting for a long time. Allow me
Mm-hmm.
to introduce this conversation about the three clocks with a reflection about humiliation and about the humiliation cycle that
Mm-hmm.
I feel has a role to play in this conversation. If we go back to 1953, Mossadegh's election in Iran,
Mm-hmm.
it was a democratic election. He gets into power. He promises nationalization of the natural resources of Iran. He's elected to do that, which would effectively mean removing the natural resources of Iran from British petroleum,
Mm-hmm.
was it at
Mm-hmm.
that time,
Mm-hmm.
and reintroducing it into the body of sort of Iranian sovereignty. And
Reintroducing it or introducing it?
in fact, introducing it. What I'm trying to say at this point is sort of just establishing autonomy, sovereignty, and you could say nationalism over
Mhm.
the national resources, over the national capabilities. And the British didn't like it, the Americans didn't like it, so they conducted Operation Ajax, AJAX. Now I think everybody is aware of it. And Operation Ajax consisted in putting this elected man, this man of the people, in prison. They threw him in prison, and they enthroned Reza Pahlavi, who then became a
Mhm.
monarch who was so effective in reproducing Western expectations and aligning Iranian aspirations with Western modernity and Western capitalism while being an authoritarian figure, that Iran became so excessively modernistic, including requiring from France and paying
Mhm.
for yellow cake material and processed yellow cake and the technology to build a civil nuclear facility that was under Reza Pahlavi, to the point where at some point there was a tipping point inside of Iran that tipped and tilted the societal aspirations from this modernity drive that Reza Pahlavi had back to some clerical dominance in the body politic.
Okay. Can I come in?
Just a few seconds.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm talking a bit too slow for my own taste, but then let me try and push this through.
Mhm.
So one humiliation is people elect somebody and you come in, you bribe students and you bribe protesters to kick him out, and you sort of from the outside manipulate the destiny of the internal politics by getting him out of the picture. Then you
Mhm.
have someone installed. That is already a humiliation point. And technical term for that in geopolitics, depending on which analysts you follow, they'll call it a grievance point. And
Mhm.
the King's College in London had a professor once teaching that and speaking at the Security Council at the United Nations, pointing out that grievance points are insignificant for adequate analysis. I contradict that fundamentally, because grievance points will be
Okay.
the 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 ferment of the popular energies that will explode at some point into violence. But anyhow, so humiliation point Mossadegh, humiliation point installation of Reza Pahlavi. Another humiliation point then comes to the hegemons when in 1979, from January to April, if my memory is correct, the um, the
Islamic
Ayatollah,
Revolution,
the
Ayatollah
Iranian,
Khomeini.
thank you.
Mhm.
The Iranian Revolution brings in Khomeini with the support, interestingly, of France. He comes from Paris, he lands, he takes
Mhm.
over, and then right after that, so that is a humiliation point that the West has to, sort of digest.
On the Anglosphere has to digest.
The Anglosphere. And we know that at this point, this is economic interest, resource interest, and
Okay.
political interest in the US.
Yeah. So I want to go back.
You want to go back? I
I
have
want to
two
go
more
back.
humiliation
I
points.
want to go back even further.
Should I let you come in at this point?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Please,
because
please, 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 please.
because what we have to understand is that
Mm,
the container of what would become 20th century politics
mm,
is set by that thing I was talking about last week, which was in the French colonial system when the French and the British had their standoff, and Napoleon, having conquered Europe, he sets up a they basically Britain and France controlling Europe had a trade war, and and during that trade war, Napoleon is reorganizing Europe according to nation states, and that organizing of Europe according to nation states is basically the new colonialism. Okay, so from that point, all politics is imagined from within the container of the nation state,
mm,
which must have a central bank, right? Must tax its citizens, must have a national language, etc. Right?
Centralization.
Yeah, that becomes a new technology. That
Mhm.
technology is used in the Middle East to
Mhm.
destabilize the Ottomans and break up the Ottoman Empire.
Mhm.
So um, so that the British and the French really support the development of schools and newspapers in the region in order to spread ideas like Arab nationalism, right, Kurdish nationalism, etc. Okay, and the whole idea that each of them must have a nation state.
Mm.
Okay,
Mhm.
in the case of of Persia, right? Sorry,
No,
in the
very
case of
important. Yep.
in the case of Persia, um, it was a state already which was separate from the Ottomans, and so they didn't try to break it up. But if they wanted to do anything, they wanted it to divvy it up later on. Okay, but originally, once they engaged, they weren't interested in divvying it up because um, it was just this one state, and you could negotiate with the state. So as
Mhm.
everybody else was talking about nationalism and the nationalism and democracy and liberation, the Iranians also started to talk about it. But almost from the very beginning, the clerics were also involved.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Okay. So very early on, they began to agitate for um for democracy. Okay. Once, and I'm not going to go into the detail, but once they got to the point that they began to imagine um the a democratic so they began to imagine, sorry, I'm fasting. Yeah. Once they began to imagine an economy based around oil, they consistently became worried about democracy because democracy was going to be a means by which people were going to start to demand more shares in the oil. Okay, so there's always, so this is just back and forth going on in Iran from about nine from like the early part of the 19th century, like 1910s or something like that. Okay, and said eventually when Mossadegh happens, he is happening by that around the region, and and the British had promised Persia to the French. Is it? Or was it? I think to the no, it wasn't Persia to the French. Anyway, I can't remember the details of that fasting,
Mm.
but they ended up with issues with places like Mosul. So some of what they had promised, the British had promised the
It
French,
was the
some of the
French.
territories of
It was
French.
the French. It was the French.
Okay,
I'm getting some memories coming back. It was the
yeah,
French.
yeah. My brain, I can't go there. My mind's not going
Mhm.
there. And anyway, so they had promised some lands to the French, and the French did not get it. They were supposed to split um, Persia between the Tsar and whoever else it was.
Mhm.
Uh, when the when the Russian Revolution happened, that was taken off the board. Then Trotsky found the papers and he published it as Trotsky and his political genius always did,
Mhm.
and um, and so on. And so what you have is an ongoing problem in Iran, which
Mm.
is that the acknowledgement that democracy in Iran is going to mean a, a worse deal for oil extraction,
Yes.
right? For the company extracting the oil. Okay, and that remains the issue. That has remained the issue in Iran. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, um, the point is, who has a right to those oil revenues? The same issue in Venezuela. Okay.
Yes.
And so I that's it. That's all. That's the point I want to make. So that the way that we are discussing these issues in terms of things like liberation, etc., we have to understand that the technology was not designed. The political technology, although that is what it talks about, it was not designed for that.
Yes.
Okay, right?
Absolutely. And
And
there.
if it was designed for that, you wouldn't need a central bank,
Mm.
right? I done.
We're going to get to the nitty gritty of this because you explore exactly these specifics in the here and now, in the exact here and now, in your three clocks approach to analyzing what is going on and to comprehending what is actually going on. I just sort of wanted to contextualize the humiliation cycle in which the relations between Iran and the West have been marred for quite some time now. And the key
Yeah.
points I think worth mentioning is, of course, 53, is, of course, 79. And 79, there's, of course, Khomeini getting into power. But also is what begins on the 4th of November, 79, and ends 444 days later, the so called hostage crisis. The hostage crisis
Yeah.
where
Hmm.
American embassy staff is arrested in Iran. And that arrest lasts 444 days with 252 staff. And during that time,
Yeah.
I think what is important to mention at this point is what happens there. Jimmy Carter's in power. Jimmy Carter also tries to go and liberate the American hostages with secret
Yes.
service
Yes.
operation in the Iranian desert, and it fails.
Yes.
And here's the reason I bring this up: the institutional memory of the Foreign Service in the US never forgave Iran
Okay.
and Khomeini for that.
Okay. So you cannot. The first problem I have
Mm,
is that the Americans don't get
mm,
to define this
mhm,
event which happened in Iran,
mm. Which one?
right?
Which one now?
The hostage crisis.
It was a
They don't get
huge humil.
they they
It,
they don't no no, but they don't get to define it, right? Because
it
what
was
happens is
humiliating.
that yeah, I get that bit, right? But basically, the CIA
Mm,
was running its operations of that part of the world from Tehran, right? From the embassy in Tehran, and with the kind of with the kind of torture and brutality of the Pahlavi dynasty. This is jackass Riza. Sorry, my apologies. Yes, Riza Pahlavi, the crown prince. Um, yes, the kind of torture that that regime, which was involved in,
hmm
right?
hmm
Also with the support of Israel,
that
right?
part. Yes.
With their support, with not only their support but their direct involvement.
hmm
Okay,
hmm
um, it meant that when the revolution happened,
hmm
those students had their suspicions and they broke into the embassy to find the receipts. And in the embassy, they had shred the papers and they seized the papers and they went to the students of schools and they put it all back together again.
mm
Okay. And they blew the cover of CIA's entire operation for that region,
hmm
right? The Americans don't mention this. They only talk about the hostage crisis. Okay.
I just wanted to tell you that, this you will not read in Foreign Affairs.
Yeah.
This version is not
Um,
to be found in Foreign
yeah.
Affairs.
So counterintuitive as a question. Why do so many Iranians live in exile? Artists, writers, journalists, academics, feminists, etc., etc. What revolution then? Um, I suggest you go and do your homework, because this is so broadly known, right? That that question there that you're asking, because I know who you are, I suggest you go and do your homework, because I'm surprised that you're asking me that question, because you should be able to answer it, right?
Mm.
I know you should be able to answer it counterintuitive, right? Yeah, so he's got to do his homework, and when he does his homework, I hope that you're going to share it in an article. Okay,
Mm.
there's Khartoum Journal who has published much of that. Okay, um, so when basically when the revolution in Iran happened, and when it actually happened, okay, this is really interesting, because the clerics were so involved
Mhm.
in much of the modernized. Okay, so there's a whole thing of the traditionality of that situation, right?
Mhm.
The maintaining of traditional Iranian society,
Mhm.
but also the desire for some kind of modernization and involvement.
Mhm.
And so what really happens here is that the the people involved, you had the communists, socialists or Marxists, you had the clerics, okay, and they really formed they 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 they, they really began, because of how brutal the Shah and his group were, they began to form alliances, right? I don't think those alliances survived the Islamic Revolution,
Mhm.
right? Yeah. Um, yeah, and so on. Um, yeah, but I don't want to get into that argument about who, because counterintuitive is here. He's saying, I know many Iranians who live in India who prefer to live there for many reasons related to living a better life. Yes, because of the kind of life that that under Pahlavi, they were the poor and they were the middle classes. Your friends are from the middle classes that ran, right? And what you have to ask them is how much they did for the Iranian lower classes, because that was the problem, right? And that is where the clerics, etc., began to become important, because in Iran now, um, for women in, I think, about their 40s, the the rate of education under the Iranian Revolution rose to about 80%. Amongst the young women, they're about 96%. Presently, 60% of the people in universities are women. Okay, and they hold major positions. Okay,
Mhm.
so what I always find interesting about a lot of the Iranian diaspora that left with the Shah is that my experience of them is that they are consistently very racist, right? And I'm very reactionary, right? Right. So that you can scarcely get um, any kind of discussion on development issues, etc., in Iran from
Mm.
them. Right? It is really reactionary. It's always I don't I avoid talking to them, because there's the depth of conversation which I often expect. I get really quite disappointed.
The
Anyway,
only reason
we're talking about the three clocks.
we are talking about the three clocks, but I also feel that this context, you know how media is. The media will jump in on here and now events, will zoom in on body counts, will zoom in on material destruction, will leave out context, will leave out depth, will leave out
Mm-hmm.
the continuity discourse, and just zoom in on there's a catastrophe, there's an assassination, there are murders, but there is
Mm-hmm.
a context to the situation we're now looking at, which could if all things escalate out of hands, lead to an expansion beyond the region into our kitchens, into
Mm-hmm.
our vehicles, into our heating systems. And if this thing doesn't come to an end before the end of summer,
Mm-hmm.
we're in trouble. Those of us who live in the
Yes,
winter.
exactly.
So,
Exactly.
and as you've written in the
Exactly.
three clocks, you specified very clearly that it has been planned to be an operation from the perspective of the U.S. For a 3 months operation. Anyhow, it's planned for 100 days. There's 100 days window of operations planned from the side of the West, the U.S.-Israel alliance,
Mm-hmm.
and people should be aware of that. And you write about that. You make it explicit. And I think, I wonder, you didn't say it, you didn't write about it. What is your estimate of how long this will last if they don't get it under control?
This is not. It's not possible to get this under control. This is a long war,
It is a long war.
right?
A
This is
ladder. Hmm.
yeah. This is a long war. This is um. We are those. This war began when the United States put warships in the Gulf, right?
Let, let me just think quickly, look at my notes quickly, because now we're in the three clocks. We're now fully steeped in the three clocks. Let me
Mm-hmm.
ask you this way. Is it relevant as context for the three clocks to remind everybody that there was in 79 the Shah, then there was the hostage crisis, which I'm grateful for the specifics you shared. Then
Yeah.
what has come in through the question now, the multi-wave, it's called a multi-wave exodus of 5 million people. It is estimated that it was 2 to 5 million people that left Iran from exactly the social classes that you mentioned. Um,
Yes.
and pardon me?
Yes.
So we have that. And then, is it, how relevant is it for the conversation of the three clocks to look at um, the 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 discourse that came out of the 80s, the 1980s?
Okay.
Uh,
The three clocks is really about war,
it's war and now, here and
right?
now.
Yeah. Exactly. It's about this war,
Hmm.
right? So
Hmm.
I really want to talk about the war.
Let's do that then. Let's
Yeah.
do that then. So,
Because the wider conversation about Iran
mhm,
is really a conversation for real Iran experts. Because that one,
mhm,
right? That one there is a complex one. Okay.
mm, mm,
And
mm, mm.
I have a working grasp of Iranian history. I haven't sat down and read Iranian history in the kind of depth that would make me feel that I am qualified to comment on that. Okay.
This is my favorite of your qualities. This is one of my favorite of your qualities. So thank you very much for that. Let's get into the three clocks right away. And let
Mhm.
us see the three clocks. You speak of the military clock, the economic clock, and the political clock. If you look at the
Mhm.
page Dystopia Unmasked right now, you will find an expose about the clock discourse to come. You will find a
Mhm.
first write up about the military clock, and the second write up, which came online yesterday, I believe,
Mhm.
about
Mhm.
the economic clock. Which one do you wish to start with, Alex?
I think the most surprising one for
The
me
economic clock.
was the economic clock, right?
Mhm.
That really shocked me. That surprised me.
Let's talk about it. Do you have an idea how you want to enter it, or should I throw some keywords and we spin
Well,
off
no,
from
no,
there?
please let's have the conversation.
So what really seized my interest and attention and surprised me was the centrality of the risk variable in this formation. But before we get to that, why are we speaking of clocks? Why are we speaking of temporality? What is an economic temporality?
Well, there are a number of things. There are is one how quickly things are happening
How quickly things are happening.
and how sustaining is the aftermath of those things happen. So once they happen, how sticky are they?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and um and how do we begin to think about war and events of this nature in a way that gives us the kind of perspectives which will allow us to effectively think our way through these issues.
Okay. Okay.
Right. So that's why I went for the clubs. I mean, the clubs
Hmm.
is it's a good heuristic. Right. So this is what's happening. This is why this is the effect of it happening. This is how it's happening. This is why we think it's happening. Right.
Hmm. Hmm.
And you get three perspectives. I mean, I think I'm going to add the narrative club
The
eventually.
narrative club.
Yeah, but
It's
I'm not going to do
fascinating.
that yet. Yeah. So
But
it's
mhm,
as I wanted a tool
a tool.
because there seem to be a lot of these events happening that would allow us to really begin to think about this kind of event in a way that allows us to analyze past the propaganda and noise.
Past the propaganda and noise. And so you found this temporal analogy or temporal metaphor of how you analyze, actually analysis in the etymological sense of breaking down a whole into elements. You
Mm-hmm.
approached it systemically, looking at it economically, looking at it militarily, looking at it politically, and
Mm-hmm.
identifying the different rhythms that you find in
Mm-hmm.
every and each
Mm-hmm.
one of these systems, the rhythms of interplay of variables and factors in the economic domain, in the political domain, and in the military domain.
Mm-hmm.
And what I was seized by when I was reading your paper about the economic temporality was the centrality of risk assessment and risk analysis. Can you tell us what that contributes to understanding the theater of operations between the US and Iran right now?
Okay.
Sorry, I made a mistake. Between the US, Israel, and Iran right now.
Okay. So what happens with insurance
Hmm.
is that insurance prices risk. Okay.
Insurance price risk, yes.
So it's about actors being able to mitigate their risk.
Hmm.
And so insurance prices risk. And so it is always an early warning system for what is going to come, right? Because the actors who price risk are involved in the theaters. Okay.
Hmm.
So it's one of those places at which you can very quickly get an idea of the kinds of challenges that you are. One of the things I used to do, and when I used to do this kind of thing before, is every year I would go through the catastrophe insurance reports
Hmm.
for the next year, every year.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay, that will give me an idea of what the catastrophe insurance guys were expecting. Okay, it doesn't mean that's what's going to happen, but it tells you because they have to do that research because it costs them.
Hmm.
Okay, so insurance is a very good place to start. That's why I use insurance. Okay.
Excellent. Hmm. Hmm. So, what did that um, angle in the economic system, what did it inform you of? Because I picked up another heavy
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
aspect in the paper you published yesterday, which was the anticipation dimension of what was going to unfold. There seems to have been a chronological kind of order of how things unfolded in the theater of operations. And the risk perspective uh, gave us here the early warning. You have already mentioned it. You wrote about foreknowledge, you wrote
Mm-hmm.
about anticipatory insight, and you wrote about early warning in there. And
Mm-hmm.
how did this early warning aspect, how could it have informed those who
Okay.
were knowledgeable of it, of what was to
So
come and what has now come to be?
okay. So once the American ships arrived,
Mm,
the markets were pricing um in if an expectation of a near-term event, right? So this is not just the insurance. The markets were pricing a near-term event.
mm-hmm,
So so they were calculating that when you were looking at um things like options, right, etc., those markets, you were seeing that they were pricing a near-term event, and they were right.
Mhm.
Okay. Once the war began and things kind of stabilized within like a day or two, what what we began to see is that they were pricing a long war. Yeah.
When is this? When are we? When are we in the time frame? Today is the
So
11th of March, 2026. The war, the
so
fighting has been going on
so
for.
remember, I because I'm of the way I'm doing the analysis,
Mhm.
and the way I'm doing the analysis, I had to stop on the fifth,
Mhm.
effectively, because I was doing the work on the Friday.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I have to. I'm one person, so I'm gathering that data, etc. So this bulletin analysis is going to be it's going to be delayed by a week. So
Mhm.
we're in the second week of the war, and and in by a few days into the first week of the war, it was very clear that they were pricing in a long event. Right. So you're hearing all of the noise that people were making, but they were pricing in. Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and they and part of that is because they are very wary of the capacity of the United States to control the arena.
Mhm.
Okay, because the United States, and this is really relevant, especially for counterintuitive, is that the 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 the, the structure of modern power
Mhm.
from the late 19th century is around the control of oil. Okay, that's the structure of modern power,
Mhm.
and the structure of modern development is with the centrality of oil. And they and we very quickly became aware of the kind of risks that involved. And that has not that the if the United States gives that up, they are no longer the hegemon,
Mhm.
right? So that
Mhm.
the performance of 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 fossil fuel reform, etc., is precisely that. It is a performance. It is hardwired into the nature of that power.
Hence the term, the technical term, petromodernity.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Somebody used that term, and I found it very pertinent. Petromodernity.
Hmm.
And can you say two, three more things about what you've just brought up, namely the centrality of the petrodollar system, the centrality of the
Okay.
petrodollar system for the uh, maintenance of
Okay.
hegemonic integrity for the U.S.
Okay. So I'm going to to remove the dollar,
Remove the
because I
dollar,
think
okay?
to understand it you have to remove the dollar.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happened is that the the resource which represented wealth and money had been gold. Basically, what you saw was that oil had moved gold aside,
Mm-hmm.
right? In terms of its capacity of its effect on the economy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's very important to grasp. So that when the United States had to now index its currency, because from this point we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about a fiat currency that has no connection to any commodity. Okay, it's not an
Mm-hmm.
index of a commodity. It now moves to say, okay, when you buy oil, you have to pay for it in fiat currency, and the fiat currency we're going to demand is in dollar.
And
Mm.
this was negotiated by Henry Kissinger, as far as I know.
I think when you mention Henry Kissinger, you have to say the genius that was Henry Kissinger. I don't like him, but the man is a flipping genius.
And I mean, when I realized that this is why this man is loved both by the Democrats and the Republicans and the establishment in the US, when I realized that, I said to myself, people who teach international relations and political science have to do a better job at pointing out what this man means for the historiography of humanity. It's not about liking or disliking. He established the petrodollar system, as
He
you've just
established,
described.
yeah, he established more than a petrodollar system, right?
I mean,
He personally negotiated the re-entry of China into the economic system.
he has a lot of dirt under his fingernails. Other than that, I mean,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's why I find him so uncomfortable. I mean, yeah, Kissinger, okay, whatever.
mhm.
Okay, so the
What's the name of that other guy? Hitchens. Hitchens, a very dislikable fella, the one who passed away from throat or lung cancer.
sorry, I really I
Hitchens.
find
It was.
yes,
He's one of
Hitchens,
the
yes.
Hitchens brothers,
Mm-hmm,
and I mean, there's a lot to dislike about this Hitchens fella.
mm-hmm.
From his stances and his chauvinism and things of that nature. But he wrote a book about Kissinger that I can only recommend. I think is Christopher Hitchens.
Christopher
His book,
Hitchens, yes.
yes, his book about Kissinger. Strong recommendation. Sorry for the interruption.
Okay, okay. So so that what you have is that okay, so one of the things that really came out of this is that the Iranians were the Americans basically destroyed the Iranian navy within the
Mm-hmm.
first week.
Mm-hmm.
However, and the Iranians were able to shut down the strait, regardless of whether they had a navy. It wasn't dependent upon a navy. It it was dependent upon two things: one, their capacity to mine the strait, or the threat of them mining the strait, and their projectiles, their drones and missiles. Okay, so
That's the military variables. These are.
yeah, but they have economic because they were able. Just the threat of that was the Iranians were able to close the strait, so the strait
That
was closed
was that was
without
such a
without anything being done except to say to threaten.
and this is such a significant aspect I find in your paper, that basically what you're saying is that there were shock waves imperceptible to people who were looking at uh, visible catastrophic kinetic destruction. If that's what you're looking for, you're going to miss
Miss, yes.
these uh, subtle shock waves of just the notion of someone threatening to destroy something creates an anticipatory climate of catastrophe that increases the costs through insurance companies.
Yeah, because you're dealing with these very large cargo carriers for oil,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
These things are
Yes.
huge, right? So the moment you threaten that,
Mm-hmm,
that's an environmental disaster.
mm-hmm.
It's just disaster all around, right?
And one,
It one of those will close the strait. You can, yeah, tonnage. I can't remember tonnage, but these things are
mhm,
huge. Okay,
mhm.
so so the insurance environment just went nah. Okay,
So what you're telling us here is that the economic clock, which contains, I've written some keywords here from your article, which looks at the circulatory dimension. The Hormuz is relevant, and this whole theater of operations. You look at the military operations, you look at the economic circulation, and you look at the political legitimization processes that are going on around
mm-hmm,
that conflict area.
mm-hmm,
And you said the economic circulation concerns matters of energy, ecology, the financial systems of goods, services, and logistics. And what is being said there and negotiated there and what is being announced there has
Mm-hmm.
influences the positionalities and the behavioral options of the parties with interests in that particular point of uh, geography.
Yes. Yes. And I want to be very specific, right? Because what you saw,
Hmm.
okay. So once the strait was closed, you had an actor like Iraq who's not involved, but very quickly found that their tanks had filled up, and because they had no capacity to move. Okay, so we're dealing with a system that is accustomed to circulation. It is built on the assumption of circulation. So basically, the Iraqis were pumping oil out, and they had nowhere to put it, and so they had to stop. Okay, but it did not only mean that they stopped what was being put the um through the Strait of Hormuz. It also meant that the pipeline that they have that empties in Ceyhan in the Mediterranean in Turkey, that also ended up having to be closed. This was and this was an aspect of logistics that is not related to normal logistics, right? And so um the now what that did also is that Qatar had to close their had to shut theirs down because of the threat of there were two threats. One is that the Iranians could strike it, which they didn't. But as you were shooting down projectiles, the debris became dangerous, so they had to shut it down. Okay, now this immediately affects the Americans' greatest ally, who are the Europeans, who have come onto the thing in, they no pushback except from Spain. Okay. But they're the ones who are going to suffer. And they're going to suffer because of the position that they were put into by the destruction of Nord Stream 2, right? Which was done by the Americans, right? There's nobody else who had the capacity to do that in the way that it did. And the evidence points very much to them, all right? Circumstantial, but it points very much to them. And both Trump and Biden basically said it. Okay. And if you look onto my Instagram, into my early videos, I have a video where I basically somebody was arguing with me, was trying to argue with me, and I refused to have the argument, and I just gave them the receipts. I can't hear you.
Sorry, my mic is off. You actually have it. I've pinned it on my page on Instagram because I hadn't looked at it since you published it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And somebody was friendly and kind enough to dig it up. And the title of that is The US Needs War. And
Mm-hmm.
you published that one. Let me go straight to the original and tell you when that prediction was made. In it, you say, I quote, the US needs a global war type event. The US needs war. And that is a video you put up on October 31st, 2024, in which you
Mm-hmm.
predict that there will be war in and around Hormuz.
Mm-hmm.
And the approach that you champion in the three clocks definitely explains. Once one reads these, you're yet to produce the third clock, which is the political clock. But we have the
Mm-hmm.
military clock, the economic clock, and you're about to put out. Please keep an eye on Dystopia en Masse to catch it when it comes out. The political clock, and you said there's a fourth one, which is you're thinking about adding.
Yeah, but I have to develop the frameworks for that.
You have to develop the framework.
Yeah.
I wanted
Yeah.
to come in hot criticizing you, saying, "Oh, but Alex, I feel like there's a cultural clock missing." I just wanted to sort of come in and make myself important by saying I'm missing a cultural clock here because we're dealing with as you've pointed out yourself, the American Jihad, we're dealing we're dealing with the son of Khamenei,
Mm-hmm.
who's now going to be the clerical sort of decision maker
Mm-hmm.
after they've
Mm-hmm.
killed his family.
Mm-hmm.
And the father, I remember and remind people, that is a detail from the military clock, of course, had spoken a fatwa, if I'm not mistaken, against nuclear armament of Iran.
Yes.
Good luck negotiating a negation of a nuclear bomb with the son of a man you just killed.
Well, I mean, the thing about it is that you'll find that that clerical class,
Hmm.
um, and you generally find that across the Muslim world,
Hmm.
is not that reactionary.
Even if you kill his father,
Yeah, they're not that
even
reactionary.
even
No,
after
no, I'm
witnessing what
serious.
happened,
No, they're not that reactionary.
even if you find even if you find yourself in a position after seeing what happened to Assad, after seeing what happened to Gaddafi.
Okay, no, but hold on. No, no, you're not getting me. I'm saying that they're not that reactionary. So what you're very likely to get
Mm,
is a fairly well thought out position.
mhm,
That's my point. I'm not saying that it won't affect that, but
mm,
that clar- I'm counterintuitive. I'm really saying to you that I have to answer some of the questions, right?
mhm,
I'm really saying to you that the whole system is built around fossil fuels, and it's not and to remove it, you have to remove it collapses it.
mhm,
So for all of the speech about the problems of fossil fuels, they're not changing that,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
Yes, it's not being changed. The only chance we have of possibly changing it, perhaps, right,
Mhm.
without collapse, right, and because it's damned if you don't and damned if you do. Anyway, but but I'm not here to defend the clerical class. Anyway, whatever.
That's not the
The point,
point.
yeah,
You're
that's not the point.
offering you're
Yeah,
offering comprehension heuristics, and that is something that I personally thought,
yeah.
wow, after reading so many analytical takes, here is a take that equips the
No,
reader.
hold on. I think that. Sorry, there's something going on between myself and Altitude. I think that you're projecting your position upon me. I don't valorize any group. I'm not interested in valorizing any group. But anyway, but I don't want to go there. I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop engaging with that right now. Um, but if to shift to the military clock, because I would like to
Mhm,
shift
mhm.
to the military clock if I could.
Yes,
Is
please.
that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay. The point that of what I saw about the military clock
Mm,
was that um, was also a proof of the political the was of the political coherence of the Iranian system
mhm,
was that after the 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 assassination of Khamenei, what we saw was that the military response continued and did not lose coherence or intensity. All right.
mhm,
Because the whole idea of that was that this was a decapitation strike. If you cut off the head, you cut off the head of the monster. This is according to the Americans. And and once you had cut off the head of the monster, then the whole thing would collapse. The thing that we have discovered is that they are neither monstrous nor centralized in the way that that the Americans and the Israelis have been analyzing it. And so one second. And so what it says is about the depth of diplomatic incompetence.
In 2008, I participated in a model war scenario game with
Mm-hmm.
the West attacking Iran, and the group that I participated with had been doing such games, such plan games, since 2003, because they'd been
Mm-hmm.
expecting it to happen after the invasion of Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
Every
Mm-hmm.
single time preceding the one I participated in that they did, Iran came out victorious. If not victorious, the United States came out damaged because of the known to political scientists decentralization mode of Iranian security politics. They have decentralized the whole thing in such a way that they have different nodes that are to a high degree autonomous. And
Yes.
these decentralized centers combine, disconnect, cooperate in ways that are very peculiar and particular to the Iranian set of tactics and
Yes.
strategies, combined
Yes.
with the very complex geography of that space.
Yes. And
Mountainous.
yes, and also if you have dealt with people from that region,
Hmm.
you understand the their strategic culture.
Mm.
And this is
5,200 years of contiguous statehood.
yeah, but also, when you're dealing with a strategic culture with people, you have to, you have your relationships with them, and
Mm,
you would have explored how they work.
mm,
Okay.
mm,
Um, and um, and you can't do that with one person. So what I'm saying is that um the the way that this has been handled so shows such a depth of diplomatic and cultural incompetence
mm.
that it's a problem, right?
I like to,
For a
sorry,
multipolar world, it's a problem.
I like to summarize it as 5,200 years of sedimented experience versus 250 years of indiscriminate arrogance.
Well, I don't like to take things like that.
But it
But
is. It
but
is. 250
yeah.
years you've been out here and you're attacking a state system that has been there for 5,200 years. Of course, it's different actors in that arena,
Hmm.
but of course, they know what their predecessors did and how they defended themselves, etc. What are we doing? What are you doing, Donald? The
Yes.
stupidity of the short-sightedness of this attack and the predictability of, at least for this short period of the war, of the outcome at this moment. And in your military clock perspective, you say something about the destruction
Hmm.
of the navy, the destruction of the launching capabilities, and how that has impacted the military responses of Iran and the military activities of Iran. And you say there that there's an aspect that cannot be predicted at this moment, but you model what might be expectable. Can you talk
Yeah.
about that a little bit?
Okay. Okay. So I want to go into a little more depth than I would have done in the article.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got two issues. You've got Iran, which it's claiming that it's bringing out its old missiles and firing them
Mm-hmm.
first.
Mm-hmm.
This means that when the Americans destroy a missile platform or launching platform, that launching platform is generally specific to that category of missile or drone.
Mm.
Okay, because they haven't brought out those other ones yet. So like some of the early ones, they don't use solid fuel, they use liquid fuels, right? So the launching logic is very different
Mm.
and sometimes not capable of being reused. So you can't,
Mm.
right? So when the Americans are talking about destroying the launching platforms, okay, they might be able to they can destroy the ones you bring out, but when the other
Mm.
ones come out, they have to do it all over again,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm.
that's a level of redundancy in the strategy which was interest. Okay. then so that what you what we had in the very beginning was a very high volume of barrages, and because it reduced, people have assumed and said, well, they must be running out or something of that nature. Okay, now that's also a possibility. Okay, and and militarily, you should plan for that. So because of who I know I'm dealing with, I am going to assume that they are. Okay. The next thing that you had is then what was the purpose of the missile barrage? Right? Are they just trying to blow things up or not? Well, there's something that one has to, and time, time is against me. I gotta get up just, but yeah. Um, the thing is that what the United States has built in West Asia is a sensor network which stretches right across the region. So any place that is part of that security architecture hosts sensors which will forewarn the Israelis, usually the Israelis, because it was developed around the Israelis, that missiles are coming, right? And has radars so that they are monitoring, and they will hope to catch launch preparations. So that basically each node operates and feeds into the other nodes onto the point of the kill chain, right? So where you're going to destroy. So basically, what you have is that anybody who is part of that network, right, is from has to be considered a belligerent. Okay, that unfortunately that's the case because of, and these are the implications of network warfare, right? And so what what we have seen, what it seems that we are seeing is and Richard Medhurst, because Syria had shared Richard Medhurst's the link, and also if you look on my notes, I shared Richard Medhurst's this video that Syria is talking about. So what we're seeing, what it is likely that we are seeing, what is likely we are seeing, is the steady degradation of the capacity of the sensory network. Yeah,
This is not a small matter. Basically, f- fascinating. So let me ask you this. Do we know whether these sensory systems are also used for targeting?
that's my point. My point is that you cannot separate targeting from tracking. That's my
So,
point.
so not only have you blinded them, Cyclops eye, as you put it somewhere, blinding Cyclops, you blind Cyclops, Cyclops can defend himself, but Cyclops also doesn't know where to strike.
Okay, so okay, so that once you degrade the network's sensory capacity, then more stuff gets through. So once more stuff gets through, then what you would expect to see is a reduction in the volume of launches, right? Because as I said, this is a ladder. It's not a cliff. It's not all of destruction. Okay, so these are escalatory ladders.
Hold on, just come again. So once you destroy the capability to sense of
Once
the
you
Western,
degrade, I'm saying you're degrading the capacity to sense.
of the U.S. Israeli party.
No, you're degrading the regional system for sensing. Yeah, it's a regional system. Everybody is plugged into it. So the Gulf Arabs are plugged into it. Jordan is plugged into it. Iraq is plugged into it.
From conflict analysis, there's a distinction between the conflict arena and the conflict formation, which I find always useful. The conflict arena is where the bombs are going off, and the
Hmm.
conflict formation are the parties as they are linked with one another across fault lines and confrontational divides, across
Hmm.
irreconcilable divides. Uh, and in this part, when you name Jordan, despite all the talk about solidarity with Palestine, they have contractual obligations they've entered at the military level with the United States and with Israel. Same
Yeah.
goes for Egypt. And this has been going on for a long time, even getting paid and incentivized since Camp David to stand down
Well,
or stand in solidarity.
you notice I don't say anything about that.
Uh,
All right. And the reason why I don't say anything about it is that from the very beginning, I made very clear what it is.
Mm.
And I don't want to perform, this is what we have to do is accept how it is,
Yes, it
right?
is how it
And
is.
stop thinking that it should be another way, because this is the
Yeah,
way it works. Okay.
this is the way it is. Yeah.
Right. And so that once we establish how it is, that's how we think about it. Right.
All right, all right, all right, all right. There's some things here. So, what are we talking about militarily? So, and you've also made clear that you will not speculate. And this I totally, but I found it very interesting that after you had said that the no space for speculation and prognostic acrobatics in the work you'll be doing here, you come through the economic clock, you come across these clear, ongoing, empirically available decisions being made by the investors and by the insurance companies, but that are outside of the purview of the public conversation in general, because this is highly specialized expert
Ah,
niches.
yes, 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 yes. Actually, that's something that I haven't made explicit, and I should actually,
Mm,
because what I'm really saying
mm,
is that what happens now
mm,
and is translated into a contract
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
is now part of the future,
Futures, exactly.
right? It is now part of the structure of the future,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the economic clock, that's what it does. It turns it turns events, postures, and risk into contracts
That bind actors in the future.
that bind actors in the future. That's really what I'm saying, right?
So
And
it
so that's predictive.
That's fascinating. And there's something I wanted to ask you before we split today. Looking at the economic, first of all, before we get to that, do you feel that there's anything missing that must be said about the military dimension at this
Yes,
moment?
there's some things about the military dimension.
Yeah. Yes, please.
So what has happened is that in this last week, the United
Mm,
States and Israel set up some some vectors that right. There's a vector of Azerbaijan,
mm, mm, mm,
okay. Then
mm.
there's the vector
Kur-
of the Kurds,
the Kurds, yes, and then the
okay.
Syrians as well. Mm-hmm.
So the Kurds that are from Syria are Kurds,
Mm, mm,
right?
mm.
So it's again trying to weaponize the Kurds' desire for a homeland.
But Julani has also been activated.
Well, the point is that once you activate the Kurds,
Mm. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
right, you activate everybody else because it's not simple. That's my point. My point about it was that it's not simple,
Mm-hmm.
right? So once, yeah, counterintuitive. Thank you, yeah, for coming.
Mm.
Yeah. So once you activate the Kurds, okay, you activate a set of anxieties around the Kurds, all right? The same set of anxieties in Syria, you're going to activate the same set of anxiety, a very, a slightly different flavor on that anxiety from the Iraqis, right? You, you also activate the Armenians, And the Iranians, right? It's not straightforward.
And Turkey.
Yes, Turkey. I should have mentioned first. Yes.
It's no, but
Uh,
it's become. You've already mentioned it without mentioning it when you mentioned the what is it? You become an accessory of the whole mess because you have some of the sensors positioned on your territory. So Turkey, however much it wants to stay out of the direct mess, is involved because of its NATO alliance and NATO equipment. And
exactly. Exactly. Right. So that's your problem. So the problem is that the problem is that okay. So the vector of the Kurds.
hmm
Okay. Then you have the kind of more peripheral vectors like the Hezbollah
hmm
and
hmm
and and
and the
a-
Houthis.
and and yeah, Ansarullah, who called the Houthis. So what happened is that once Ansarullah had threatened the Red Sea, the Bab el Mandeb, and the shipping had been rerouted, they just stepped back,
hmm
right? Because contractually it's now locked in, they're fine. They just step back. Right? Not getting that was the point. The point is pressure. Okay. Then Hezbollah has become involved, and they've been involved in it looks like degrading the Israeli system close
hmm
up, right? The thing about again the thing about the culture of groups like of people like like many of the Iranians, especially the Iranian Shi'i um, clerical population, is that they are very disciplined,
hmm hmm
and they tend to be very disciplined, um, and very cool-headed. They're not not generally hot-headed. And so what you're going to find with people like Hezbollah is that again there is very cool-headed, right? Very strategic. Um, and okay, what you so what you so what you've got here is that the activation of these vectors, none of these vectors do not have complicated consequences. Okay, and I've so that what we have seen is that we really haven't heard very much more about the Kurds, right? And we really haven't heard very much more about Azerbaijan. So I can't hear you. Yeah.
No, no, I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah. So that is significant. But this is the next week. I haven't looked at that yet. But that was the vector that the United States was going to had set up, and it's gone quiet. So that is a signal. I don't know what that means. I'll 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 I'll, I'll try to know on Friday.
Fascinating. There's one thing that
There's one more
yes,
thing,
yes,
one more signal. Now, regarding one of the things that happened when the Iranians had closed the strait, is that a lot of ships started going dark. And so there was a trade going on, but the Americans can't stop that trade, right? They can't attack those ships and stabilize the insurance environment. So they're caught in a situation in which they have dominance over the entrance into the strait, but they cannot activate it because they are bound strategically.
Mhm,
But nobody's talking about that,
mhm.
right? So you have all of these kinds of so that what you're seeing is is a system that is very interlocked and very and not straightforward. So that in and that is the nature of this conflict.
Very interlocked, you say. Let me ask you something. An infarctus. What is the word for that in English? An infarct. What?
Mm.
I want. I want to. A stroke. Isn't it a stroke?
Yeah,
One is a stroke. I want to ask you about two things because I've been thinking about asking you this today. Um, an aneurysm. Can the Hormuz blockade be compared to an aneurysm or to a stroke?
I don't think either of them.
Which one is it? Isn't there something like sort of? I have a feeling we're talking about a clogged up artery or clogged up vein or clogged up axis of circulation.
Okay,
Isn't there an
you know,
analogy?
as this was going on, I started thinking in terms of
A blood clot. David says blood clot.
yeah, but it's like a neck lock,
It's like a.
a neck lock.
Mm,
It's
it's
more
more
like a
like a
neck lock.
necklace.
It's more like a neck lock, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it's a neck lock. You don't want to kill your opponent, but you want to control them,
Mm.
right? It's a controlling neck lock.
So in terms of martial arts, what this is a submission move.
But it's not even a submission move, it's a control move,
It's a okay, okay, okay,
right?
okay.
Sometimes you in martial arts, sometimes you will present your opponent with you put them in a situation where they only have a certain ranges of
Mm, mm.
of replies, and you keep them in that controlled system,
And the
right?
consequence of that is hypoxia, is lack of oxygen in the system. You
You,
suffocate them.
well, it depends on why you want to control that that system. Sometimes you have a situation that is inherently dangerous, and you engage one person who you know you can who you know you can handle, and that entertains the other people around you.
Mm.
You
You
know,
mean?
yeah,
Mm,
like a Mexico, yeah, it entertains the people around you, and so you just you control the space in that way, so that
mhm, mhm, mhm,
you have to remember that yeah, this is not the Americans are trying to establish that they control the circulation at this node, right?
I
And
just
that the
typed in.
Iranian
Sorry.
and that the Iranians that although the Iranians might want to call it the Persian Gulf, that the Americans are we control this node,
Mm,
okay?
mm,
And what is being demonstrated is that they don't actually control the node,
mhm, mhm, mhm,
and that perhaps this has happened a long time ago,
mm,
so that it makes you wonder about the reasons for their involvement at this
mm,
node. That they because everybody talks about that they are only there because of Bibi Netanyahu.
mhm,
I'm
mhm,
saying that this is indicating that they are there. Yes, Bibi Netanyahu, but there are other reasons why they are there that are related to their own interest.
mhm,
Okay,
mhm,
and this is a standoff. And what I think, what it seems to me that we are seeing is that um, the the end point of this, from the perspective of the Iranians, is that they extract the American effective control of the region, right?
mhm,
And the point for the Americans is that they must for their outcomes is that they must maintain hegemonic control of the region.
mhm,
Now
mhm,
that position is now impossible,
mhm,
but it is their desire, and I don't think that the Iranian position is possible.
mhm,
And a lot of the noises I've been hearing from the Iranians about because now they're thinking about it in terms of people who they should pay compensation,
mhm,
and I think they're going to find themselves. Yes, there's some compensations, but they're going to find themselves in trouble with that one. So what you're seeing is two views of this conflict and possible resolutions which are irreconcilable.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. All right.
I
I think
see
I'm done. I think.
I
Oh,
see
sorry. Gone. Robert Romano, right?
Robert Romano has done us
Mm-hmm.
a great service by
Mm-hmm.
synthesizing the matter. Says
Mm-hmm.
military outcome number 1, the Iranian Navy is eliminated.
Mm-hmm.
Military outcome number 2, the 90% reduction in missile launches, with
Mm-hmm.
a big question mark because now we want to see, is it because they've been incapacitated or is it a tactical strategic
Mm-hmm.
ploy? Military outcome number 3, activation of peripheral fronts, namely Hezbollah, Houthis, and Iraqi militias. And
Mm-hmm.
emerging stress point number 1, the Israeli reserve constraint, and emerging stress point number 2, the Azerbaijani front, a strategic surprise. That is excellently put. Excellently put.
Yeah.
And one thing that I'm sort of moved by
Mm-hmm.
is the Samson option. Everybody I know in the analytical field has responded with a more rational kind of feedback saying, no, because the Americans and the Israelis do not want to pollute the region. They do not want to pollute the region, therefore, nukes
Okay.
are excluded and tactical nukes will be excluded. I am not so sure.
Okay. So the North Koreans
Mm.
produced the antidote to that,
Yes.
right?
Uh, what in this particular case, the North Koreans are proving to be Deus ex machina, sort of promising a certain destruction upon. But the Samson doctrine includes the Masada complex. We are bringing the
Yeah.
temple not down on
No, no.
you, but
Okay. Hold on. The Israelis want a they want one a state, two, they want a greater Israel.
mm,
That is now under stress. The Iranians are not stupid, right? This is one of the things about that we have to remember about the region. One of the assumptions of Western analysts is that the Iranians are crazy and they are the only rational ones. Okay, and I and that is such a problematic and a racist position that if you have ever dealt with Iranians, you know that they're not that, right? The Iranians, I mean, if a crazy Iranian is still strategic, right?
I would have classified this under zero sum maximalism before you taught me the Melanie Klein perspective. You
Yes,
know,
yes, but the Iranians are more s- sorry, fasted, um, you know,
depressive
depressive, yeah,
from in that classification, more
in that case.
negotiation open. Yeah, this is absolutely fascinating, Alex. I'm grateful. It's
Yeah.
now 11:30 where you are, 12:30 where I am. And the question is, do we end this conversation here? There's so many aspects, military and economic, we could touch upon. Um,
I hope it was I hope that it covered enough of ground for people.
well, we've touched on so many things. I look very much forward to next week. I hope we'll
Hmm.
still be around to have these conversations. I hope the people in the region alive at this moment of our conversations are all still alive at this moment of our conversation next week. Um, I am of the firm belief that when humans move their macro political systems to war, that intellect, moderation, reflection, reciprocity have failed, and that there is always a solution that would have made all of this bloodshed and bloodletting unnecessary, but that there's some will somewhere by someone in power who doesn't give a about killing people and about the sacredness of human life. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in this situation. But that's just me. That's just me. The reality of geopolitics is not to hope and not to spread hopium on a situation that is already inflamed, but to look at what is and what is going on and the
Yeah.
variables as they stand.
Yes. And as you notice, I really avoided that in this. I
Mm,
just looked at
yeah.
uh, strategic, the strategic dynamics
The strategic
as a system.
unmasking of the dystopia as it unfolds in front of our very eyes.
Yes.
Well, thank you
Okay.
all for showing up again and again. Please consider joining for those of you who haven't joined a funded subscription. This is not a request to do so, but an invitation. If you'd like to support our work, of course, it would motivate us even more to know that people are supporting this financially. Bring as many as you like. All of this is free. The subscription is not paid. We'd love to be more. The more, the merrier, in order to also increase the conversation. When
Mm.
this is turned off, don't forget to write your comments underneath the video that Alex will upload. We read them, we react to them, we think with your contributions as we
Yeah.
proceed. Thank you very much.
And thank you everybody. And yeah, no, thank you so much. All right. Okay, goodbye, guys, and salams and lots of love.
Bye
And
indeed.
see you next Wednesday. I should release the political clock um hopefully tomorrow.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Looking forward.
Yeah.
Thank you.